Everyone wishes they were early to Bitcoin, and everyone feels like they're already too late. But when you see what early actually means, you'll understand that even though we've passed $100,000 Bitcoin and we're never going back, maybe, you are absolutely not too late to buy Bitcoin. If you've got even 0.01 Bitcoin right now, you're not just early, you're practically 1999 internet early. Back then, about 4% of the world had ever been online. Amazon still looked like a total joke, an online bookstore started by a bald nerd who was losing money hand over fist. Google didn't even exist. The iPhone was like 8 years from existing. The smart money still thought the internet was a fad. Today, a decent estimate is that Bitcoin adoption just crossed that same 4% line. It's the same moment and a different revolution. And if that's not enough to wake you up, consider this part. Bitcoin makes up just 0.2% of global wealth today. That's an asset with a $2 trillion market cap out of the $1,000 trillion total asset universe. Gold is 10 times bigger than Bitcoin. Bonds are 150 times bigger. Real estate is 185 times bigger. You're standing at the base of the world's greatest skyscraper before anyone's even broken ground to build it. And depending how much Bitcoin you own, you might already own a penthouse before the elevator starts ever moving. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly where you stand, not in hype terms, but in historical context, how rare your Bitcoin stack really is, and how early you really are to the only money that isn't someone else's liability. About to get into it, but first, real quick, my name is John from My Favorite Thing About Bitcoin. I've been studying Bitcoin for several years. I created this channel with the mission of helping other people better understand and grow their conviction in Bitcoin. So if that sounds like something you might be into, hit the subscribe button. Okay, let's get into this. Here's the deal. If you're holding Bitcoin right now, you're definitely not late at all. You're still pre-Wi-Fi. You're on a dial-up modem. You're still getting the internet from a disk from AOL in the mail, not the email, the snail mail. Owning Bitcoin in 2025 is like using the internet in 1999, back when 4% of the world had ever been online. If you zoom out, Bitcoin just crossed that 4% adoption line, and most people still think they've completely missed it. It's a bubble, it's a fad, and they're already too late. But the truth is, you're still early, not just in terms of adoption, but also in terms of how much of the global wealth game hasn't even started moving into Bitcoin yet. If you hold just zero point 0.01 Bitcoin, you're likely already rarer than a fiat millionaire. That is crazy. There are 58 million fiat millionaires in the world. So if every fiat millionaire received an equal share of the total supply of Bitcoin, the maximum amount each of them could own would be about 0.36 Bitcoin. So how about you make that your new goal? Instead of one Bitcoin, make it 0.36 Bitcoin, and you'll know that you have more Bitcoin than most fiat millionaires in the world could ever possibly have. And to put this in even more perspective, owning Bitcoin in 2025 is like buying Amazon stock in 99 with a paper check. Most people did not think the internet would change the world until it already had, and nobody could have predicted what it actually became. That's where we are right now with Bitcoin. But the biggest difference, Bitcoin is not a company. It's a parallel financial system. For internet adoption to scale, they had to build entirely new physical infrastructure, servers, fiber optics, data centers, global communications rails. Bitcoin, the rails already exist. It's software, it's weightless, it runs 24/7 globally. The friction to scale is lower because the internet infrastructure has already been built, and adoption curves are compressing across every major technology. The internet took 25 years to go from 4% to 68% global adoption. If Bitcoin follows that same arc, you're not just early, you're still at the beginning of a 10 to 20 year wave of exponential monetization. And unlike the internet, Bitcoin isn't just a communication tool. It's a store of value with a sledgehammer coming to shatter the broken fiat system. And if the Bitcoin market cap today represents just 0.2% of total global assets, then Bitcoin is still a rounding error. This is what it still looks like before the floodgates even open. The adoption is still early. 2025 has been the beginning of the institutional adoption, but the real capital still hasn't moved in yet. And most people are still on the sidelines calling it a scam and waiting for more certainty. So let's get even deeper into this where you sit in the story. If you hold just 0.01 Bitcoin, a million sats, you're already ahead of 99.9% of the planet. So would you ignore an investment that put you in the top 0.04% of global participants? Of course, that'd be ridiculous. But that's what holding even a tiny sliver of Bitcoin does for you today. It's easy to feel small when you're surrounded by loud whales online. But in global terms, even the smallest stack makes you rarer than the top 1%, in almost any traditional wealth bracket. Remember, the internet is a set of protocols created to transfer information digitally across an interconnected network of computers. But in 1999, there was no way to buy or directly invest in the internet itself. The economic value that was built accrued to those who built companies on top of that protocol layer. But imagine if you could buy a share of that internet protocol, a token or a stock certificate that represented a fixed share of all the wealth that would eventually be built on top of the internet. Bitcoin is a protocol built to transfer value digitally across an interconnected network of computers. And it comes with its own token that represents a fixed share of that network. So again, imagine if you could have bought a share of the internet before 99.9% of the rest of the world got in. We're still sitting on that opportunity with Bitcoin today. If you break it down by tiers, 0.01 Bitcoin, you're holding the equivalent of a .com domain in the 90s. That's like buying books.com or flowers.com or cars.com. No one else sees the value, but it's valuable real estate on an entirely new protocol. If you own 0.1 Bitcoin, you're almost certainly part of the top 10% or maybe even top 8% of all Bitcoin holders. That's equivalent to being early stage equity in a protocol that hasn't even hit its Series A. The cost today is about $10,000, and the positioning of that is absolutely priceless. Now, what if you own one Bitcoin, the mythical, all-powerful whole coiner milestone? Just over 800,000 wallets hold at least one full Bitcoin. And wallet level data almost always overstates how many people hold Bitcoin. So the best estimates are that actual individual holder numbers are 3 to 4 times lower than wallet level stats, especially for the larger balances that are over a Bitcoin. So this is where it gets really crazy. We might have already passed peak whole coiner. The number of addresses holding one Bitcoin or more is shrinking. It's down only over time as Bitcoin gets chopped up and fractionalized and distributed more widely. The whole coiner is not just early, they are becoming extremely rare. Now, if you have 10 or more Bitcoin, this is rarefied air. You're in the top 0.28% of all Bitcoin wallets, statistically rarer than most private equity LPs in Silicon Valley. And that's not owning equity in some company. It's not paper wealth. Bitcoin is self-custody, final settlement, 24/7 liquid, trustless, permissionless digital value. The deeper you stack, the earlier you really are, not just in terms of money, but in understanding what the system really is. Quick pause to say if you're liking this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's a QR code on the screen you can scan with your Lightning wallet. It's @MeSats if you're liking this video. And never dox your stack, but drop a number in the comments of what you think a reasonable, realistic stacking goal is. 1 Bitcoin, 0.21, 0.36, 0.01. Back to the video. The tech is early like the web in 1999. The adoption is early like 4% globally. The capital inflows have barely just started. And if you're in the game now, you're not just ahead, you're positioned for a future most people haven't even considered possible. Most people think they're too late to Bitcoin, but they don't realize how empty the neighborhood actually is. If you hold 0.01 Bitcoin or more, you're one of about 3 million people worldwide, which is roughly the population of Dubai, which is the world's 167th largest city. If you hold 0.1 Bitcoin or more, you're in a global group that could fit all into the size of Jacksonville, Florida. If you own one full Bitcoin, you could most likely fit every whole corner in the entire world inside the population of Toledo, Ohio. That's 0.003% of humanity, less than half the amount of people that visit Disney World in a week. And one whole Bitcoin, most people will never get there. The idea of owning one full coin is slipping out of reach. It's becoming the digital version of owning a Manhattan brownstone. Once upon a time, decades and decades ago, could have been considered normal. Now, it's basically a folktale. If you're holding even a small amount of Bitcoin right now, you're not just early, you're in before the sidewalks are even paved. This is a window where average people can still claim a meaningful amount of Bitcoin, but the window is closing. Not because Bitcoin is changing, but the rest of the world is finally waking up. And by the time they show up to the city, you want to already own a whole block. So why does all this matter? Most people spend their entire lives playing a wealth game they never agreed to. They don't vote for it. They don't choose it. The game is work hard and save in a currency that gets weaker every single year. Hope the stock market doesn't crash too hard. Buy assets late, pay taxes early, and rinse and repeat. Bitcoin breaks that loop. It's not about promising you riches. It's about the ability to capture the value of your time. There's no CEO, there's no country, there's no insider class. It's just code, scarcity, and right now it still only makes up 0.2% of global wealth. 2 trillion out of 1,000 trillion asset universe. The average family has exposure to stocks, bonds, properties, or cash, but not Bitcoin, not yet. And that won't last forever. Every time a new wave arrives, maybe a bank collapses and a currency dies and another country wakes up, the window narrows. So wherever you are right now, if you're holding zero point zero 0.01 Bitcoin, you're not late. You are on the launch pad. If you're holding zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, you are still front running institutions. If you've made it to 1 Bitcoin or beyond, you've already exited the matrix, whether you even realize that or not. This video is not about price predictions. It's about positioning. Owning Bitcoin now is buying equity in an open source monetary network before the real capital ever arrives. The system that it replaces is rigged. The system that it builds is permissionless. And your job is to step off the default path and decide. The only question is how far you want to go. So if you're stared at your Bitcoin stack wondering if it really even matters, now you know. You have proof that you saw something before 99% of the world really gets it. And the wildest part is the opportunity is still here, but it's not going to be here for long. The real capital is starting to arrive. So if this video helped shift your perspective at all, click the like button so the algorithm spreads this thing. If you're stacking, don't dox yourself in the comments, but drop an emoji in the comments and let me know if you're a shrimp, a fish, a shark, or a whale. And if you want the full picture of where this all is going, subscribe to the channel because I have some great stuff coming out pretty soon that you're not going to want to miss. So thank you for watching. Don't forget how early you really are. Stay humble, stack sats, and don't ever forget, Bitcoin is inevitable.